the locker room like, we even said it wasn't quite like the Missouri locker room, we said it was pretty wild after the game Thursday.
Well, there was obviously a lot of carryover from the field into the locker room, and you have excitement from players that put in a lot of time and effort, which is very positive. This is an emotional game, and it's an emotional football game, I should say, not just an individual game, but football at this level is very emotional. And so there was a lot of carryover in the locker room, but then it settled down pretty fast, which I was pleased with, because I worry more about that night and the next day than I do what's going on at that particular time. But they need to be able to celebrate with the students and the fans. They need to be able to enjoy the success that they've had, and they, for 4 or 5 hours, people can tell them how good they are, and make them feel good about it. And then, the next day we can correct that as coaches.
So what were your thoughts as Dan Bailey was getting ready to go out there and go for that kick? What were your thoughts and emotions?
Well, one, I was glad that Sean had intercepted the ball and that we were attempting that field goal and not them. Two, I felt really good about the snap, the hold, and the kick. And three, I was glad that we had a veteran, experienced young man who was going to attempt that field goal. Those were the three things that I thought about that time.
What color are his shoes, Mike?
Bill, not to make a comparison here, I don't want to ruffle any feathers, but my 9-year-old asks me that all the time. And I honestly, until he brought it up, I don't really pay attention to it, but when he brought it up a while back, I started to look, the color of John's shirt, the color of that orange shirt up there. He's got more than one pair, and I don't really know why he changes. And he's had different colors on in practice. And Coach Jones used to always say that you battle a football game at the college level for 59 minutes and 58 seconds. And then some guy may come on the field that's 5'3" wearing a pair of funny shoes and decide the outcome. Now Dan's not 5'3", but he is a guy that's wearing funny shoes. So I'm not sure what the color of his shoes are, but as long as it makes him kick good, I'm for him.
He said he's had them a while and they're so worn out that he has to super glue them together because he's superstitious.
That could very well be true.
Mike, you talk about stability, but you got contributions, and you talked a little bit about this after the game the other night, but Tolu Moala's contribution, especially given what he was going through with his family situation the night before. But overall, to see him succeed based on how long he's been here with you, one, how did that make you feel? And two, what has been his overall contribution to the program?
He's been on somewhat of a roller coaster, because at one time that he thought he had a season-ending injury, and I very seldom talk about injuries. If I'm asked directly, then I'll respond to them, but otherwise I'll say I'm not sure, because usually I'm not sure. And in his case, nobody asked me directly, and I didn't respond, but it had gotten out that he had a season-ending injury. And then they came back after the MRI. I usually wait till after the MRI, because you never know. And after the MRI, they found out that he's just going to be out for 2 weeks or whatever it was. So that was pretty emotional for him, because it was his last year. And then he'd come back, and he was in some sort of playing shape the week before. I think he got 10 plays or something. I'm not for sure. And then they were going to bring him along for maybe 30 plays in the next game, and because of the circumstances, he ended up playing a huge number of plays. And he had actually hurt his ankle a little bit and played through it, and he's fine now. But when we got back from the movie on Wednesday night, the bus let us off over here at the Student Union, about 9:30. And so I was starting to walk back to the stadium to get my car. And he had come up to me and said that his daughter was sick, and he would like to go and be with his family, and she needed to go to the hospital. And so we were talking about it, and we were walking back this way. It's kind of an example of where you are as a college student, being young and being married and having kids. I was coming back to get in my car to drive home, and he was walking back to the stadium to get his scooter so he could go home to be with his family at the hospital. And during that time, I had gotten a phone call from a recruit, and it just happened to be a linebacker. that we were trying to recruit to replace him next year. And all that happened from that walk to here. And so there was a lot going on emotionally, and then I didn't realize till the next day that it was, not serious, but serious enough. If you have kids, you understand if your child has to go to the hospital, it's pretty serious in your own mind. And he was up with her, and had kind of worked through it. But then, even though the next day you don't play till night, there's somewhat of a fatigue factor when you're not on a normal routine and sleeping. And then he came back and played very well, and so it worked out good for him and for us. And I think that's a great example for our younger players, from what you asked me, and this connects to what he's meant to our team, is just to learn to push through those situations. There's personal issues going on everywhere, and one of the biggest battles in college football from a coaching standpoint is dealing with personal issues of the players, things that are going on outside of football, to be able to keep them focused to practice well, to perform on a Saturday or a Friday night for this week.
Did you know that he was hollering at Sean Lewis to pitch him the ball on that interception?
No,
Because
was
he
not
says
aware
it's
of that.
because of his rugby background.
Well, he does that some in practice. When he intercepts the ball, he pitches it. And I actually thought he did that just to irritate me. I didn't know that he had a rugby background. And I did not know he was asking for Sean to pitch the ball to him. But that doesn't surprise me. Tolu's got a really good personality.
Would you have been for that, him pitching the ball to
No. No, I'm not for that. I'd been for the way it just happened.
Coach, talk about your defense. I know they didn't get off the field on the third and fourth and long, but it seems like they're making progress. One, they're forcing those third and longs, and two, they're getting the big plays, the turnovers that make the difference in ball games.
Yeah, they're forcing turnovers, and one area that we improved in, I mentioned earlier, some we were better in, some we didn't get as much improvement, was catching the ball when it was thrown to them. And we had worked on that in practice and understood the importance of when you have an opportunity to make an interception, you need to make those plays. And so they have done that, but we have to improve and be more productive on third and longs and fourth downs. And that's not a secret. Coach Young, I'm sure, has probably visited with you guys about that. But those are two areas that we have to improve in order for us to continue to get better throughout the season. It'll be very important that we improve in those areas.
When you talk about the veterans helping like the young guys out that are just traveling for the first time and everything, is it also something you look for them on the field, like Hugo and Kendall, to take a bigger role or to make bigger plays and lead that way?
They really just have to lead by example. Not to be comical, but if you give you an example, if you relied on Hugo and Kendall to vocally lead, you wouldn't hear anybody ever say a word, because those two don't talk. And so the example I'm making is that they have to show the younger players how to do it instead of telling them, and that's what we've been communicating with them. Ori and Hugo and Jarka and Kendall. I'm trying to think if we don't have that many guys on offense that are veteran enough to talk about, but they need to lead by example, and the younger players need to follow.
Mike, what memories, if any, do you have of going to Lafayette in '86? Would have been your first game?
That got brought up this morning on my teleconference, and I hadn't thought about that either, but that's 25 years ago, and that's a long time. Some of you guys that have been covering this game when I was playing, I know it was a big shock to you when I said that, but that was so long ago. I don't remember much other than it was my first time to travel as a college football player, and so I got to eat with the team and be on a bus, and they had a police escort. I remember more of that than I do the actual game. I know it was hot down there because it was early in the year, but I don't remember much more beyond that.
What do they look like on tape? From what you've looked at?
Well, they're offensively, they're going to run they run the zone. They're going to run some power. They have a good tight end, he's a good player. He's a big guy, and he catches the ball well. He can run. They had a back that got hurt that was pretty athletic, and it looks like now they're going to use another guy. I think he's a freshman or a true freshman. I saw him, number 20. And defensively, they're going to blitz. They're going to play some 4 down. They're going to play some 3 down, Robert, and I would suspect that they're going to blitz a considerable number of times. They want to do it anyway, and I would say that we'll see quite a bit of blitzing.
Would you say you feel better about your freshmen now, seeing them go against some Big 12 athletes?
I think they've been seasoned some, but the longevity of a college football season, when you're playing quality opponents every week, that's the real test. When you get into a meat of a schedule where every week you have to perform well and play or you can get beat, that's when the true test will come. And that's what we always worry about as a staff, is if those freshmen hit a dead end at some time, which could be, I'm just throwing a number out here, after game 7, game 8, in that area, a lot of times they get tired. I mean, it's really hard to get them going. It's hard to motivate them in practice and hard to get them going. We'll know a lot more a month from now about where we're at with our freshmen. Because when you have to get ready to play every week, that's really when it stresses them out and puts some wear and tear on them.
Mike, is this almost an ideal scenario for a first road game in that you hit the travel routine, it's a smaller school, but they're being a late game, it'll be a really rowdy crowd, knowing that we're down there in Louisiana, and at the same time, it's a very winnable game. Is that kind of ideal in that you get to experience all the different sides of it?
Well, certainly they'll be fired up now. It'll be a big night for them, and obviously it'll be a night that the students are there with the TV. So you're not going to have a stadium size-wise that would be maybe comparable to some in this league, but from a noise level, they'll be very excited, and they'll try to make it as hostile environment as possible. So it'll be a challenge for our players to compete in that environment, but they'll have to learn how to do it. They might as well learn now, because from this point on, we're going to have a number of games on the road, and it'll be important that they go out and play well and rely on each other, lean on each other, and we'll go in there with 70 of them, and they have to realize that 70 of them have to come out with a win. All right.